Joy and Alex. Alex, who brought you into the movement?
Let's see. John
In this
Carson.
room.
Oh, in this room?
Yeah.
Who brought you to this room?
Who brought you to this room?
Oh, to this room, Joy Cushman.
How many other people were brought into this room by Joy Cushman? So Joy brought all of us into this room through individual relationships that she built with each of us, right? Joy, how do you feel having all these people being brought into this room through you? Do you feel?
Good, but also excited for these folks to have relationships with each other, too.
Mm-hmm. So we got brought into this by Joy, but now we're all part of something bigger, right? And that's where we find our power. The source of our power is in our relationships between each other.
So, just going to take a quick pause and give you guys a situation on what we were thinking and trying to figure out. At this point, we were trying to figure out, we were thinking about two ideas of how to make this real in out of this room, right? Because one of the ideas is making it real in this room and the ways in which relationships sustain us and keep us together. One is a role play. I'm just going to describe it quickly, and then I'm going to go with the other option of telling a story, and we'll see which resonates. So the role play we had thought about was talking through, narrating a relationship that's built all around just doing the work. So it's like issues. So Michelle and I meet each other, and I say, Michelle, healthcare is really important. We need to deal with healthcare. And the narrator says, so Michelle and Jake, they say they've got to deal with healthcare. And they go off and they work and they do all this work. They get lots of people and they go to a big rally, and healthcare doesn't happen. And Michelle and Jake walk away. Why did they walk away? Why did they walk away? Why didn't they stay?
Because that's all they had.
That's all they had, right? So the relationship, if we had had a relationship, what could have happened? If we had a relationship beyond just this one healthcare bill right now.
Could have drowned your sorrows together.
Could have drowned our sorrows together. What else could we have done?
Could have strategized.
We could have strategized. We could have recommitted. We could have figured out, okay, how can we keep on going together? And so just like we were just seeing how we're all here partly because of joy, it could have been a relationship that could have sustained us to go beyond the failure that we faced. So that's one way of going about it. The other is to make a radio come on with no station and say, what does this mean? So the other option we were thinking about was telling a story. So the example that I would think of is when I was first organizing, I was a union organizer, and I didn't quite understand how important relationships were. So I was organizing in Los Angeles, in the nursing home industry in Los Angeles. I don't know how anybody here know about nursing home organizing? So Joy knows a little bit about it. And so if you know something about it, it's very, very low-paid work, really difficult, and very little power that workers have. So I was young, just coming out of college, and I really cared about that. It seemed wrong to me, and I wanted to do something about it. And I was pretty good at talking to people, so I thought that's the way I would do it, is I would go and persuade people that there was a way for them to make a difference, change. And so I went into the nursing homes, and it was my second month as an organizer, and I had a nursing home that was my turf and my responsibility. And I started meeting workers, and it was kind of a hot shop. So anybody know what a hot shop is in union context?
No. Lots of problems.
Hot shops, right. Everybody's angry. It's hot because people are angry, the boss is not treating them well. And so it's a good opportunity to move people to action. And so I met a few people and told them how they could do something through the union. And I heard about I would sit down with them and hear about their problems at work, and then I would say, look, the union can make a difference. Here's how other people have done that. And I was pretty good at talking to people in that way. And so a lot of folks came together and said, oh, let's do something about this. And so our first meeting, we had a big group. There were 10 of the workers out of 90 who were in the room ready to figure out how are we going to form a union. And unfortunately, I hadn't built any relationships with any of them. And the boss found out that they were trying to form a union. And so who did they have the relationship with? With me or with the boss?
The boss.
The boss, right? Who did they know longer? And so when it came to it, and the boss started saying the union's not going to do what they say they're going to do, the union is lying, all of those things, who did they believe? The boss, right? And so what happened? What do you think happened? We had a meeting the next week. What do you think happened? No one came, right? So I learned a very important lesson that you can't do it just on persuasion, on ideas. So the next campaign I worked on, it was a big strike campaign in a hospital where it was high stakes, similar situation, workers were getting paid very low wages. This was also in Los Angeles. And I came in and I knew that I couldn't just go in and persuade them that the strike was the way to go. I had to build some relationships. And so I started meeting workers like Randy, who worked in surgery, who had never worked in the union before, never been involved. Started to build a relationship with him, learning about his church and his kids and his dreams. And so I did that with different workers in different spaces, and they started getting to know each other as well. And so two things happened. Well, first, what do you think happened when the boss found out we were starting to go towards a strike? What do you think the boss did?
They said the same thing.
He said,
The
the union's gonna, right? They're lying, the strike's not a good idea, this doesn't work. And so, in this situation, relationships have been built. So, when that started happening, I could talk to Randy, and Randy and I had a relationship of trust. We had built a relationship, he knew who I was, I knew who he was, and we could talk through that problem. And then strategize on how is he gonna talk to his coworkers on how to deal with that. The second thing that happened was the hospital has nurses and janitors. There's the service staff and there's the nurses. And the hospitals always have a tactic of giving the nurses what they want and having them try to sell out the service workers. And so the boss did that. They made a proposal that met all the nurses' demands and none of the service workers. And so that moment was a test of relationships. But because they had gotten to know each other, the nurses immediately responded and said, no, we're not going to accept this. And they stayed together, and 2 weeks later we filed for a strike. We got to the doorstep of strike and won an amazing contract that included what the demands were for the nurses and for the service workers. So that's what relationships can do. And that's what we're going to talk about here, is how do you build those kind of sustaining relationships that can keep you through the challenges that always come up in a campaign. And so there's a particular tactic for doing that that we're going to talk about now, a particular way to do that.
The two kinds.
Oh, I'm supposed to talk about the two kinds. So another innovation we want to integrate, and I'm obviously not doing it now, but I'd be curious if you guys have ideas on how to talk about it. So that in relationship building, there's two types of relationships, or two ways to approach relationship building. There's the first time you meet someone, where you're going to be focusing on discovering who they are and learning a lot about them and building a relationship about who your mutual stories. We just did Story of Self to learn about that. And then there's the ongoing relationship. And so both of these are important. What we're going to focus on now is the discovery, that first introduction you have with somebody, but it's those ongoing relationships, like the one I had with Randy, that keeps a campaign going. So it's not just this first moment, but it's an ongoing process. So we're going to focus now on the first moment.